emotions, just like thoughts, do not belong to a separate character or form or person. It is a strange thing to say that our emotions do not belong to us, but we have to leave the way of thinking, this normal way of thinking, that there is someone who experiences everything, a separate form that experiences thoughts and emotions. And if we go from this point, starting point, that there is no one who experiences emotions and thoughts, my words will be more clear and logical. Because right now it is not logical to say that if I am jealous, this is not true, you are not jealous, you are expressing jealousy as this oneness. And there is a great difference between expressing jealousy as this oneness and expressing love or hate, all the range of emotion, as a separate form. When we identify with our separate form, we express emotions in a very narrow way. Because we believe that these emotions belong to us, so we hold on to these emotions, we believe these feelings and emotions, and we act accordingly. When in fact, this is only what happens in the story, and this is the mechanism and the tools for the story to grow. So let's take jealousy, for example. If you are jealous of someone, you can say that I am jealous of him because he has more money, he has a more beautiful house, and I would like to be like him, so I feel this jealousy inside me. When in fact, you should look at it as if it was a story about two people. One of them has a bigger house, and the other one is jealous. And this story is in a book somewhere, not the one who reads it. And it is a very great difference between the one who reads the book and the character inside the book. Emotions are connected to the body. They express themselves through the body. And there is a physical reaction that occurs when we feel something, we have an emotion towards something. If we love something, we feel all nice and fuzzy, or maybe our stomach is making somersaults when we fall in love. And there is a great big support from the body to demonstrate those feelings, to show them. So the body is an active participant in the process of creating emotions. They are linked, emotions and the physical body. But it is only the physical body. It is only this illusion of a physical body, and as such, both of them, emotions and the physical body, have the same leverage weight. None. They do not exist and they do not have any weight. So it's like two non-existent things that together create the illusion of a movement that becomes an emotion. The emotion rises from a situation. Again, inside the story, you cannot have any emotion that is not related to your story. It always complements the story. It always demonstrates the story. If you feel loneliness, it is because the story of the character isolated herself somehow, or found herself in a situation in which she is alone. And imagine a story or a movie in which the character finds itself alone and not having any reaction to this state. If it wouldn't have any reaction to the state, she wouldn't do anything, she wouldn't cry, or she wouldn't try to find some companion and fix the situation, so nothing would have happened. She would sit alone. And there will be no expression of loneliness. So emotions are expressions of this oneness as something that stands for itself. So loneliness and anger or frustration, all these emotions comes to express the very term. It's like there is a dictionary, and in the dictionary we can look at the words and see the meanings. So if you look at the word kitchen, you will find a description of a room with pots and pans and stove. But if you look in the dictionary under the term desperation, you will find the definition of desperation. What is the definition of desperation? How does it express itself? And your emotion are these definitions in the great big dictionary of oneness. They are just expressions of this infinite ways of this all-nothingness, oneness to express itself. Because all-nothingness or oneness is whole and complete. It is infinitely deep in its expression. There are infinite ways of expression to this all-nothingness. It can express itself through apparent matter, and it can express itself through dreams or thoughts, and it can express itself through emotions. And this is what it does. Just like we don't belong to a separate entity that is disconnected from this oneness, emotions do not belong to the separate, unexisting identity. And inside this all-nothingness, this oneness, there is the whole range of everything and its qualities. And there are so many qualities to this all-nothingness. It can't show itself all these qualities all at once. So this is why there is some kind of a division to shapes and forms and all these other things that are not material, ideas, music, and emotions, but they only express what is inside this oneness. So this oneness has the same qualities as our emotions. Some people think that all nothingness or oneness, consciousness is only pure love and light, and it's just good. And it is not. Not because it is not in its nature. The very nature of this all nothingness is kindness, compassion, and quietness. But inside this great, great, great serenity, nothingness, lies all the qualities that could have been expressed. And inside them there is the good and the bad. And when we talk about emotions, the whole range of emotions. So there are no good emotions and bad emotions. All of them belongs to this oneness, and our qualities inside this oneness. Expressing ourselves in this world, showing the world who we are and acting in this world needs motive, needs drive, needs something to make us act. And emotions, this is their role, their part, this is what they do. They create the atmosphere for us to act, because we cannot not act. We cannot ignore our emotions. We cannot ignore the body. We cannot shush this tremendous movement that is pushing us. This movement is pushing us forward. It tries to make us confront the moment. Emotions gets you inside the moment in a moment, because you cannot ignore what you feel, so you have to be inside what is happening. They connect you to the moment. They make a strong link to the moment, so you will notice the moment. If you would not have this mechanism, so everything, you could look at it in different kind of ways, so you wouldn't see the moment. You wouldn't care. But emotions force you to care, force you to really be interested in what is happening, because it is linked to you and something is happening to you. And it's so strong and it takes over. Emotions have the tendency to take over the character, to take over the situation. So emotions and feelings takes over the character, and they lead the way. The way that you act is the direct result of what you feel. And you are very, very loyal to this process, because it is the strongest indicator you have about what is happening in your inner world. So the common belief is that emotions are reflections of ourselves, of our situations, of the way we react to things, when in fact they are not, because there are only these expressions, and you take them from this oneness and express them in the level that you are now in your knowing of yourself stage, because you have built yourself a psychological structure which you identify as you. This psychological structure was built ever since the days you were a small child, and through all these experiences you had in your life, and you learned how to react to things, you learned what is the proper way, how you will not be hurt by anyone, and you tried to feel safe inside this growing up. And this distorted the spontaneous I call it the spontaneous I, which is the greatest gift you can give yourself if you will discover who is your spontaneous I. But in short, spontaneous I is the highest, most evolved you could be, most open, most loving, most humorous you can be, light. And on this spontaneous I, there is this psychological structure, and emotions change in correlation to this psychological structure. They are not loyal to anyone. There is no you and your emotion, and you are loyal to your emotions. Your emotions react to the psychological structure that you are in right now. And if your psychological structure right now is very closed and suspicious, your emotions will reflect this stage of underdevelopment. When you are low, your emotions will be low. More negative feelings and emotions will rise if the psychological structure is low, is not handled. You didn't take care of yourself. You built yourself on these beliefs that you are not good enough, or through the experience when you got hurt, sometimes from people and you don't trust them. And all this makes the emotion that you draw. It's like you draw the emotions from an endless pool. There is a pool of emotions. All the emotions are there. And the separate form draws not to itself, but it shows different emotions that are in this pool. But it's if the separate form attracts the low emotions, and we'll call them the low emotions and the high emotions and feelings, because emotions can be high or low. You can feel uplifting emotions such as inspiration, kindness, love, and you can feel negative emotions such as hatred or jealousy, frustration, despair. So the kind of emotions you draw from this endless pool react or are being drawn just because of the psychological structure. So it's a vicious circle in which the psychological structure demonstrates negative emotions, and these negative emotions create a negative experience, and then this negative experience verifies the fact that the psychological structure is true, and then it creates another round of negative emotions, and it's an endless process, and it's a vicious one because there is no hope, because these emotions look so true and real, and they verify what you think about the world, when in fact the emotions don't have any relevance to the separate form, to your character. They're just expressing the level of your spiritual growth, development as an individual. And if you will demonstrate other emotions and feelings, you will know that you are more evolved. Being open to the world, trusting the world, attracts positive emotions. Good feelings and emotions are so nice to feel. And I don't know a person who would rather feel or have negative emotions than just going through life in a big smile. But it can be done to go through life and change the scales of the emotions. Just look at them as scales in your life, and look at these scales and see how many of your inherent emotions are good and how many of them are bad emotions. And of course, there are no good and bad emotions. All of them are expressions. The question, and the only question, is how does your separate form wants to express this oneness, and if it has the desire to express it in the good way and to feel good, it has to see first, look at itself, at the separate form, and ask itself, how many of the emotions that I have during the day, a normal day, are positive ones, and how many of them are negative ones? And see the scales, really, really, and honestly see those scales. If you feel more negative emotions, know that. Know that it has an enormous effect on your life, a negative effect on your life. It influences everything you do, every relationship you have, and it's not something that God said that has to happen to you because these are emotions and there's nothing you can do about it. This is just what happens. This is how I feel. No. It's not how you feel. There is no you. This is what you express because you are in this kind of perception of reality. And you can do something to address this situation and to correct it or to feel otherwise. You can control your emotions through looking at the psychological structure and changing the way you act. And how can we change the emotions? First, we have to understand that emotions are not wild horses that we have no control over. Of course, when the emotion rises, you cannot do anything to suppress it, and you have to let it go through you and express itself. But I'm talking about, in general, how you change slowly your conditioning to the reality, so the emotion that will rise will be deeper, more positive emotions. And this is something you do in a constant kind of way by acting inside your reality in a different way than you usually do. For example, if you are a very suspicious person and you have a feeling of distrust when you meet a new person, you have the possibility to trust this man, to give him a chance and to act differently, to do something that shows you trust him, to jeopardize something, to show you trust him, to go out of the comfort zone that you usually are in when you meet new people, and from the way you normally act, in order to change this mechanism of distrust. So if the first time you'll do it, it will be hard for you to trust someone, even though you feel inside you this great distrust. But if you looked at the situation and logically you have no reason not to trust this person, try to make the jump and do something in this relationship that shows great big trust, and be willing to jeopardize yourself. And then when you will see that it was okay to trust this person, the next time you will meet a person, your emotion will change. The way the psychological structure reacts to reality will change just because you changed your action in the real world. You tried and you changed something. So emotion can be shaped. You can shape them and pull other emotions from this infinite pool of expressions. It only has to do with your psychological structure and the effort you will make to address yourself and the places in which you know that these are negative emotions, they are taking you back, they are coming back all the time, and you do the same thing all the time, and you get this terrible reinforcing the message that this is you. This is not you. You are not a separate form. These emotions don't belong to you. They are only these expressions. So if you change the way you act, you change everything. You change the emotion that will rise. After you do that, if we talk about distrust, after several times you will do that, and you will trust people, and many things will start to happen because you trusted them, and you will eat the fruits of this wonderful investment in a tree that you managed to go above yourself and to do something other than what you were used to do, to distrust. Because when you distrust people, it closes everything, nothing can happen. And when you trust them, everything can happen. And when you will see that everything happens when you trust them, slowly but surely, the opposite emotion will rise. When you will meet a new person, the emotion that will rise will be trust, will be openness. And you will reverse this thing that it seems like you cannot change. And you can. Because what will rise from you will be different. Because you did something different. Because you looked at yourself. If you want a different kind of expression of emotions that is naturally coming out of you, you have to really look at yourself and be willing to change the way you act inside reality to build a new way emotions can express themselves through your separate form. Let emotions, let the positive emotions express themselves through you. It's the same for this oneness if you express negative emotions or positive emotions. For the separate character, it's very important. She wants to feel this positive emotions, but she can't do that unless she addresses itself. She looks at itself, at the separate form, and act in the constant kind of way that reassures the psychological structure that this is okay to trust and to feel these positive thoughts, emotions. Instead of the negative cycle that you are in that justifies reality and sees everything like, okay, this is what I'm feeling and this is true, this is what's happening. Instead of this cycle, try to build a parallel cycle of emotions in which you act differently and you do things inside reality that creates trust and enables the positive emotions express themselves through you, and then see what happens. So emotions do not belong to the separate form. They are only expressions, and inside this great, vast, infinite way of expressing things, by acting inside the reality, by moving out of the comfort zone and trying to do things differently. When you feel a negative emotion, try to act differently inside the situation. This is the best indicator you have. When the emotion is negative, this is precisely the place when you need to transform it to a positive emotion, and you can transform it to a positive emotion. Look at the negative emotion that rises. Look at what it's trying to tell you, the story. If it's telling you a story about hating something, look at what you hate and try to understand it, and try to bring some love inside this hatred, and slowly build a bridge inside yourself that shows yourself that you can express the higher, most beautiful emotions possible.
Nothing good, nothing bad, nothing ventured, nothing gained, nothing stillborn or lost, nothing further than proof, nothing wilder than you.